Good afternoon, gamers. I'm ACR here with the Lootplot Demo. It is a Luck Be the Landlord style game. I'm not exactly sure what the genre is. A dopamine treadmill, a gambling simulator, something like that. But we've got these basic slots. We fill them in with items, and we're trying to get enough points to beat the level. We've got 6 rounds to do it. The game has points, multipliers, and bonus. Points and multipliers are pretty simple. Your points get multiplied by your multipliers and then become your points up in the top left. And we'll cover bonus in a second. The very first thing we pick up is a void fruit for null slots. Those are basically like inventory slots. Things in there do not get activated. So we're going to pick up this red leather, and that adds 4 bonus but subtracts 20 points. And it does that on pulse. So the items all pulse from the bottom left to the top right when you start the round. There's also a bunch of other ways to get items to pulse. We'll see that a little bit later. Back to the bonus. So the bonus adds points anytime you get points. So if you have 100 bonus and you gain 1 point, you gain 101 points, and then that's finally multiplied by your multiplier. So for the red leather there, we need 20 divided by 4, 5 additional pulses after that red leather for it to pay itself off and then start to be positive in the point generation. We also pick up the stick and the trumpet. They're pretty cost effective, and the trumpet there gives us a little bit of multiplier, which we don't have any of this. And you notice there when I re-roll, the stick gets activated. So things activate not just on pulse, but sometimes on re-rolls, and there's actually a few other, but re-roll and pulse are sort of the main 2 activators. And we get ourselves enough points to beat the level. The demo is kind of a little easy, maybe even a little bit broken, but from what I can tell, the main game has been updated quite a bit and has quite a few balance patches, so if people are interested, we might check it out. But it is still a very fun little demo. There's lots of different things that you can try out and mess around with, and it's sort of fun in its own right. The game has a lot of really interesting mechanics. And then we pick up probably one of the strongest items in the early mid-game. Keep in mind I'm saying that as somebody who's only actually played one game. This is my second game, but it is a incredibly powerful item. The iron chess piece, it costs $1 to activate. We don't love, but it gives items +1 bonus, and it has horizontal 3. That means it hits 3 things to the left, and it also hits 3 things to the right. And you can see there after the on pulse, it has 4 out of 4. Those charges get charged up at the beginning of the round and at the end of the round, and pretty soon we're actually going to be able to use all those up twice per round. So we're going to be able to get this to activate 8 times every single round, and that's because we're going to have a way to, on our first reroll, basically re-trigger everything in a certain AoE. I'll show you guys that when we get to it, but if you think about that, it's actually pretty crazy because that bonus from the chest are permanent. So if you think about that, we have 8 bonus points per round times 6 items, and those items we're going to be able to activate sort of like 5 to 10 times per round. Even if we say 5 times on the low end, that is 240 bonus per round. And so when we get up to say like round 40, that means we are going to be getting 9,600 bonus just from this one item in this one setup. It'll take us a little bit to get fully set up, but it is absolutely pretty crazy. And that bonus, remember, it gets added to every single time we gain points. So if we got an item that gains 1 point, we're going to be getting like 9,601 points in the late game. We also pick up the moon knife because I'm a sucker for anything that says permanently, and then we are going to go ahead and lock that bowl. The empty bowls are actually crazy. They activate on pulse and they activate on reroll as well, and we are going to be able to set up some pretty interesting combos with that because they pulse other items. And if you remember, items recharge at the beginning and the end of rounds, so this is actually going to let us use most items basically twice. Now we want to work on expanding our grid. I kind of like to expand to the top and to the right. The left and bottom are kind of blocked by our inventory area or null area, and then the left to the shop, and we'll actually be able to expand our shop and the inventory area later. So we want to open this up and create enough room there for our chest piece, right? We want to have that chest piece. We need a 7 row to take full advantage of it, 6 items plus the 1 chest piece. So just trying to expand out, make some room for stuff. Our next interesting pickup is the negative shield. It multiplies our multiplier by -1.5, multiplies our bonus by -1.5, and adds 2 bonus. So right now, not very good. That's kind of one of the reasons we picked up those null spaces there early on, where we can take this item, stick it, and it's not going to do anything. But if we can get another one of these, that is a pretty awesome multiplier, where we can just actually straight multiply our multiplier and bonus. Not a lot of those in the game. And negative 1.5 times negative 1.5 is a 2.25 multiplier for both our multiplier and our bonus. So our overall multiplier to our score is it's a little hard to say exactly, because also it depends when it gets activated. You'll see later on we have sort of a weird setup where we try to build up our bonus and multiplier first, and then we try to take advantage of it later on. Because one thing to keep in mind is that your multiplier applies when you get the points. So if you gain multiplier after you gain points, those points don't gain that additional multiplier. So you want to get your multiplier built up first before you gain points. And again, stuff activates there from the bottom left to the top right. You can see it go there kind of along those items, and probably actually not the best order as I look at that. And you can see we're using that empty bowl to activate that iron chest plate a couple times so we can start stacking up those bonuses. Our next pickup is going to be the ruby ornament. That is going to help us build up multiplier. Right now we only really have the trumpet giving us multi, and we're getting enough points out of our bonuses. And you can see actually I took the chest piece out, just trying to build up a little bit of money now, because we need that. We need to get up to 20 for that ruby ornament. And you can see there we are using the bowls to activate our one ball that gives us 4 gold 2 times. So we can activate that again on a reroll, and our first reroll is going to get us an extra 8 gold because we've got our bowls there, which is pretty impactful. Our next big pickup is the golden pulse ring, $1 of interest for every $10 we have, and it has 5 charges. So eventually we'll be able to activate this 10 times, which is essentially doubling our money, which is kind of crazy. Actually over doubling the money because it's compounding. We also go ahead and pick up this diamond apple, and that converts the slot into being a diamond slot. So slots in this game can have effects as well, and the items on that slot earn 4x bonus. So that whole combo we were talking about with our chest piece and those 6 items, we can eventually make all those 6 items be on 6 diamond slots, and so it basically is just like a 4x multiplier to that whole setup, which is pretty nice. Then we go ahead and farm up a little bit of money using our ring there. We can trigger it 3 times here, actually 4 times when the round goes off, and then 3 times sort of on the first reroll, which nets us quite a lot of money. And we've got the chest piece just out for the moment, trying to build up to that maximum amount of gold. The golden pulse ring does have a max of 20 interest at 200 gold, and now that we've got that money coming in, we can put in one of the most broken combos in the early game, the wooden shield with the bowl. They both pulse items, and they are capable of pulsing each other. So when you have triggers that trigger triggers, and those triggers can trigger the original trigger, stuff starts to go a little bit crazy. It can only activate 5 times, so we're not going to get like this infinite combo going, but we are going to be able to activate everything in the AoE of that bowl shield combo, essentially 10, well I guess actually 11 times per round. So 6 times during the round, because they're going to get pulsed by the round and the shield combo, and then also 5 times during the first reroll, because those charges are going to get refreshed. It's, yeah, I don't know, I guess intended, but this is really kind of where we start kind of breaking the game open a little bit. So you can see here on a reroll, we've got a lot of stuff happening. A lot of those items are all popping off, and that is because of that bowl shield combo. We're basically going to use up almost everything. We've got an additional bowl on that ring, so we're going to be able to use up all 6 charges on that ring. I don't know why I have 2 bowls pointed at the shield. That's not really useful. It doesn't really matter. But you can see there how everything is burned down to 0 charges, except for the bowls, of course, because they have 15 max charges, and pointing 2 bowls at each other is not really useful right now. Our next big pickup is going to be the Boomerang. The Boomerang earns a measly 1.5 times every single pulse, and it has 8 charges. And if you remember what we were talking about before with bonus, it kind of goes a little bit crazy, because that's 40 total, and that's just off the round. You could get 80 total if you include the reroll. You can see here those 3500s just stacking up. That's kind of that 860-ish times that 4.1 times multiplier, and our score is jumping up 134,000. Right now we can only activate the Boomerang 6 times per round, times the 5 times point gain, times the 860 bonus, times 4.1 is about 105,000. That is like roughly 80% of the total points we gain. So that means that Boomerang is essentially a 5x multiplier for us compared to the previous rounds. A little bit later, we are able to pick up a second wooden shield, and that's going to give us kind of an overlap, a 3x3 overlap with the other shield, where we're going to be able to activate some of the items sort of, I guess, up to 10 times or 11 times during a round. So the Boomerang, that has 8 charges. There's a few other items in the game that have sort of more charges that we can take advantage of, and you can see here those rubies have really built up. This is off of our first reroll. We're up to an 8.5 multiplier, and they're just going to keep building up over the game. Now here at round 1 of level 4, we're starting off with an 8.5 multiplier and 850 bonus, and then we've got our Boomerang positioned sort of above all of our bonus and multiplier generating things, and to the right. And I do believe, I'm not sure exactly how the triggering items work, but they seem to kind of respect that, and you can see those 38,000s popping up there, just going crazy on the Boomerang, and it gets a couple more triggers there. 1.7 million for a goal of 4,000 is not too shabby off of the first round. Our next big move is going to be to expand our shield bowl combo area. We're going to first pick up a ruby apple, and that is going to allow us to convert a slot into a ruby slot there. And that gives us repeater, which essentially whenever it pulses 4 times instead of 1, which is quite decent, although honestly we don't actually really have many items that we can take advantage of that with, but theoretically in that middle slot we could pulse an item sort of like 10 times 4 times 11 times 4 during the round, or 10 times 4 during the reroll, but we don't really have anything that we can actually use that much. We also picked up those blue nets, which I didn't actually realize until I was editing this video that they don't work with the bonus, which makes them kind of trash, but yeah, they would be a little bit crazy if they worked with the bonus. We then roll probably one of the best items in the game, the magic turnip. It transforms into the target item. It lets us dupe things. So you see the negative shield there. That gives us those 1.5 times 1.5 multiplier, but it's negative. So we need 2 of them to make it positive again. So we have negative 1.5 times negative 1.5 is positive 2.25, but then that applies both to our multiplier as well to our bonus. So that is 2 things that essentially multiply together themselves, and 2.25 times 2.25 is 5 roughly. And we can do it on reroll as well as doing it on the round. So how much of a multiplier it actually does is not exactly clear. I'm putting it in an absolutely terrible spot. I think at this point in the game I hadn't realized like the multiplier applies instantaneously. So I was like sort of like, oh, I want to put it at the very end. It's not terrible. Although I don't actually have it in range of anything that rerolls stuff either, so it's actually only going to go off on the round, so maybe it is actually a pretty terrible spot, but we'll fix that up eventually and we'll get some other crazy stuff going. Yeah, I think at this point in the game I was under the impression that the multiplier applied at the very end, but that's not actually the case. The multiplier sort of applies instantaneously based on what it currently is. So you sort of want to build an area where you build up your bonus and multiplier, and then sort of build up an area where you're actually gaining the points. So right now those 2 negative shields are completely wasted, but we're still doing pretty okay on points, and the rounds are actually starting to kind of take a little bit of time. There is 100 million, a little bit hard to tell, but I think we get up to about 150 million here out of our 4,000 goal, so not too shabby. So a few rounds later, I finally figured out that the negative shields should probably not be at the very end, and you can see I kind of got them in the middle. On the bottom, I'm building up bonus and multiplier, and then the negative shields go off kind of in the middle, and in the upper area, we are gaining points using mostly our boomerangs, and that really helps us out. We are now getting up into the billions. We're at 2 billion there, 3 billion, 4 billion. Yeah, so not too shabby, and I think we kind of end off this round, it looks like 6.2 billion, so pretty decent jump. It's been about, I think, 3 or 4 rounds, and we also picked up another one of the golden pulse rings, and that's giving us 20 interest, but it's essentially 10 times per round, so about 200 interest, and that just gives us enough money to reroll and buy stuff that we can really just start expanding and taking off. For our next big pickup, it's going to be a little bit complicated. We're going to be using a couple different things, starting off with this Regged Magnet. So it is a King 3, so it has a 7x7 square, which is kind of terrible if you read it. It adds multiplier equal to the price of the cheapest target item and can be negative. So we want something that is extremely expensive to be in its AoE, but only one extremely expensive thing. So ideally, it would only target a single square. That would be very nice if we could do that, as well as having some kind of ability to drive the value of an item up. Turns out we can actually do both of those things. We have the star item, and that lets us swap the AoE of 2 different items. So we can take our magnet and give it a 1 AoE, and then we can also take our bowl and give it a 7x7 area. Keep in mind, the bowl activates other items, and it can do that 15 times. So not only is the magnet part of this kind of crazy, where we can take the magnet and focus it onto a specific item, but we're also getting a massive AoE repeater thing. So yeah, the star fruit there goes kind of crazy. To increase the price of items, we have the golden donut. It has 10 charges and it increases the price of items by 4. So we're going to be able to use that 20 times per round. So that's going to mean our price of items is going to be going up by 80. And then the red magnet has 2 charges, so we can use that 4 times a round. And that adds itself to the multiplier. So that means we're getting 320 multiplier, and that's increasing by 320 every single round. And if you compare that to the red ornaments that we had earlier, they have 6 charges, and they're gaining sort of roughly 1.2 multiplier, and then that's getting used 12 times. So that is 14.4. And so 320 divided by 14.4 is about 22. So that's set up with that 1 magnet on that item that is getting its cost increase is worth about 22 of those red ornaments. And then we can also add more magnets. Oh, and you might have noticed our shop is a lot bigger. We have a lot of slots there where we're getting items, which is really nice. Massively increases our probability of getting what we want. And that is from the Book of Shopping, which converts slots into shop slots. It can be a little bit annoying to use. You can actually use it with the bowl and reroll, so you can trigger it, however many times you reroll, and you can build out your shop a little bit. It does have doomed on it, which means it is going to get destroyed. It starts at 20 activations, which, considering I think you start with like 3 or 4 slot shops, going to 23, 24 slot shops is kind of crazy. I don't use it all. It just kind of gets a little bit annoying and gets a little bit messy. Right now, I'm trying to find something that would be useful to increase in value. I sort of figured there might be an item that is like, add bonus based on the value of this item or something like that, right? But I don't think there is, at least not in the demo. I think the full game has quite a few more items and stuff like that. I end up giving up and just use a ball of yarn. The ball of yarn just really doesn't do anything for us, but it starts at 10 cost, which is like relatively high value. And then you can see there we set up our shields so we can activate that golden donut 10 times per reroll and 10 times per round. I was originally using my King 3 bowl with this shield, which sort of gave us 5 massive AoE pulses, but then I realized it can pulse another bowl, and if I do a bowl into the King 3 bowl, I can do 15 massive AoE pulses, which is actually not super useful because we don't actually really have that many things that take advantage of that. The boomerangs, I think, are kind of the higher charge things that we have, and those are 15, those are only 8 charges. There are the shovels in the game. Those, I think, can have up to 30 charges, so we can definitely use them with certain items, although honestly it's just not like that crazy because the boomerangs even though we can only use them 8 times, they generate points 40 times. And I think that basically ends up being better than anything else in the game just because of how much bonus we're going to get. But we do go ahead and pick up the red shovel here. Although if you look at this boomerang here, it has earned 1.5 times, and it also has earn 5 points. You're able to put earn points onto items via other items as well as some different foods. So I think the boomerangs actually end up triggering 48 times. A few rounds later, we're able to pick up a golden magnet, and that gives us money based on the value of an item, and we go ahead and swap it with another bowl. I think the bowls are the best thing to swap with generally. It only has a single charge, but that is 160 gold per turn that we are gaining every single turn. So plus 160 every single round. Pretty quickly that'll start to eclipse our golden pulse rings, which earn us 200 every single round but are not growing by anything. They're just earning a flat 200 versus the golden magnet that is earning us, I think it's about 180 right now, and then it is growing by 160 every single round from that beautiful golden donuts. Our next big pickup is going to be the multiplier card. Multiplies global multiplier by -2. And with a little bit of a blast from the past, we're going to use a magic turnip on it. And now we get to multiply our global multiplier by 4. On the same round, we also pick up the magical chest plate. Buff items points by what the current bonus is. So that means our bonus is going to apply not only this round's bonus, but also all of the previous round's bonuses, at least since we get this item. And it has horizontal 3, so we're able to apply it to 6 items. So that means our bonus is now like a series. I don't know exactly what the closed form on that would be. I think it's quadratic, right? Like right now our bonus is scaling up linearly per level from a couple different sources, mostly from that magic chest plate. And then because we are saving that bonus and we're getting sort of the sum of all the previous bonuses, I think that means that our bonus, at least for the 6 items that it is being applied to, is scaling quadratically. Star asterisk, I'm not actually really sure. Please do correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. On this round, I had the brilliant idea of trying to run my gold into the negative to try to take advantage of the robber sack, which multiplies our gold by -1.5, but you can't actually go below 0 gold. So kind of just griefing myself on this round, but we're still getting a pretty crazy amount of points, and it is starting to actually take a little while to get through the round. You can see everything going off there quite a few times. We've got a bowl combo down there on the bottom as well. And you can kind of see we've got our setup split up into 3 different areas. On the bottom, we've got the magnets and the ornaments and the chest plates giving us multiplier and bonus. And then we've got sort of our multipliers and bonus multipliers sort of in that middle area there over to the right. And then along the top, we've got all of our boomerangs and nets. The nets, not really that useful. I didn't realize that they did not work with the bonus, but the boomerangs go pretty hard. And you can see there, we're starting to get into scientific notation, and that's usually a pretty good sign that you're doing well in a game like this when you start seeing the E's pop up there for you. Especially when our goal here on this level is 15,000. So yeah, not the best balance, but from what I can see, the actual main game is a little bit better balanced. And this is like the easiest difficulty. If you noticed earlier, our robber sacks only had a couple of activations, and so one way we can get around that is using the doomed card. That allows us to swap the doomed count between 2 items. So we can take the books that start out with 20 doomed, and we can swap that onto our robber sack. And since we have 2 of them now, we can basically over double our money every single time. As you can see here, we are able to get up to 110,000 before starting the next round. That is using the reroll combo in combination with the bowl and shield and those robber sacks to double our gold over and over again. And then we are able to start the round. The rounds now just take so long. We've got so many things going off. And then skipping ahead, we are at 500,000 at the end of the round. I think it actually should have been more than that because that's only 5x. I think it should have 10x'd because the shield would have procced them 5 times. But I think at this point, stuff is not actually activating as many times as it should. You can see here stuff is just going a little bit crazy, and I don't think it is actually activating everything the right number of times. But yeah, that takes our gold from being quite good to sort of crazy. There is actually a limit on the number of rerolls you can do, so it's not like we can just sit here rerolling forever. I actually believe there is a way to get additional reroll buttons. I think the first time I played this game, I was able to get some additional reroll buttons. There is a book that like randomizes the tile. But anyways, at this point, we've basically got the game beaten, but we're not really scaling that fast, right? We're scaling like something times r, where r is the round, to the power like 3, maybe to the power 4, something like that. I don't really know exactly what's going on, but really we want to scale exponentially. So we want our scaling to be something to the power r, right? Where we're repeatedly multiplying our point gain every single round. Very luckily, we can do that with the hybrid card. That allows us basically to snapshot our multiplier and turn it into gold, and then turn our gold back into our multiplier. So you can see down in the bottom left, we've got our hybrid card and multiplier set up to go off at the very beginning of a round. Then we have 6 of the multiplier cards, and so that is going to be 2 to the power 6, or 64 times our multiplier during the round. And we're also going to add a bit to it, and then there's also the other 1.5x times 1.5x from the negative shield. So that will get us up to 144x per round, and then we're getting a little bit of flat multi as well. And of course, we are going to set up our hybrid cards with bowls. So that means we are going to get 144 times 144 multi per round. So that is 20,736. For the very first round here, it's not really going to do anything for us because we don't have our multiplier snapshotted, right? It's really going to benefit us on the round after this, where we are having that huge multiplier snapshotted and starting with that huge multi. This round's going to look basically like our last round did. And if you watch our multiplier right now, we actually get completely griefed. It goes down to 0. There is a sponge in the bottom there that is somehow getting activated, even though it is in a null slot, which I feel like is a bit of a bug, but that kind of griefs us a little bit. Eventually I do figure that out what's happening, but I've been very confused here a little bit what happened to our multiplier. Okay, so eventually I figured out what was going on with the sponges, and I managed to start this round off with 43 million gold that gets turned into 43 million bonus, and we've got a lot of stuff going on that is completely useless. Basically everything we did before this multiplier saving combo is pretty much irrelevant now, so eventually I am going to start pulling things off just to make the rounds go quicker, because it is starting to be a little bit tedious, but let's jump ahead. And here we are about to end the round, and I kind of forgot about this, but we kind of get griefed again. I think we have too many activations, and none of our multiplier cards actually ended up really activating. I'm not sure exactly what was going on, but I was able to push my gold up to 2.5 billion using the robber sacks, and then we go ahead and pop this round off. Again, really a lot of stuff happening that is just incredibly useless, but this time our multipliers do work. We should expect to go up to about something E11, about 3.5 E11 would be 144x, and there it is, 3.5 E11, so that's 144x, and then on our first reroll we should get another 144x. Jumping ahead, we get pretty much our last big pickup, the red fan. That takes our multiplier and applies it to points, which is kind of crazy because our multiplier is growing super fast, but our points and bonus are just kind of stalled out. But this makes our point scale at the same rate that our multiplier scales, and our points and our multiplier are multiplied together. You can see we moved a bunch of stuff off into the void slots. Probably should have moved more stuff into void slots. We also have floaty applied to everything. I never really brought this up, but I used a magnet to apply King 3 to our Seraphim, and that allows us to put our items wherever we want. So really, we still got way too much stuff on this board because most of the stuff is just not doing very much for us. We are using a golden greatsword now to generate points. It has a 15 times natural multiplier, and then it's on a golden square, and the golden squares give a 6x multiplier and add additional gold cost. Not that that really matters to us. Here on our first round with the red fan applied. We're starting out with 3.1 E60. You can see that there in the top left. Our multiplier right now is 1.4 E37. And keep in mind, when those numbers go up after the E, that is like a times 10. Going from 60 to 63 would be times 1,000. And then 64 would be times 10,000. 65 would be times 100,000. And we go up to E82. So that is times, I don't know what that is. It's times E22, I guess, but it's like billions or whatever. And then you can see here the rounds are going quite a bit quicker. We've removed a lot of that stuff, and our multi goes up, or our multi/gold ends up going up to E42. So off that round start and first reroll, we got about 340,000 times multiplier. And the reason it's that big is we picked up another 2 set of the multiplier cards, or I guess another 1 set of the multiplier cards. On to the final level, we are basically just doing the exact same thing over and over again, starting the round, re-rolling once. We've gotten rid of a bunch of stuff just to clean things up and have things go faster. You can see that was a lot shorter than those kind of mid-game things where we had all those boomerangs and nets and the bowls. None of that really matters. You know, maybe that stuff is like a flat 1000x multiplier or something like that, but pretty irrelevant relative to our multi-scaling. And we're up to E246 in the points, which is a little bit scary because we want to get to E308. That is where a IE744 double floating point will overflow, something like that. Don't quote me on that. On round 3, I started to get a little scared that we weren't going to make it. So I remembered that we had this prism. It decreases the round count by 1, and it steals 2.5 million points, which is not a whole lot to us. And that lets us basically, I mean, we could stall here forever, but eventually we do get ourselves very close to that E308. I do enjoy the graphic scaling in the game. It's sort of nice to see those giant multipliers pop up and all the crazy numbers. I will say, I looked at the Steam store page, and it looks like the dev has been doing weekly updates to the main game. If people are interested, post a comment, I might play it. It is, I think, $7, so pretty cheap. And there we go, Anan E Infinity. That's what we like to see. Always enjoy sort of breaking games like this a little bit. I'm kind of a little curious to see what the main game looks like. It has additional items, additional difficulties, as well as apparently excellent modding support, which is kind of interesting. Be curious to see if that takes off or not. Just for fun, I reduced the round count to -1 using the prism. Kind of curious to see if it would go below 0. Yeah, and that is basically it. It is a pretty interesting game. There's a lot of really unique mechanics. Obviously, the balance a little bit questionable here in the demo, but the full game has harder difficulties, and it looks like it has gotten quite a few balance patches, so I might check it out. If anyone has, please do post a comment. Let me know if you liked the game, how the main game was. But I will probably check that out in the future. On a personal channel note, I know I have not posted in a couple years, 1-2 years, I'm not sure exactly. I do have some Rogue Tower content recorded. I will try to post some of that. I don't think I'm going to be making videos like crazy often, but I am set up in a way where I can make videos. So depending on, I guess, how the channel's doing, I might post more, might post less. No guarantees, but if you enjoyed the video, please do like, comment, and subscribe. That is definitely a motivating factor to creating more content. Anyways, have yourselves a great day.